that.
Okay, I just did too, so I hope I didn't screw it up with you. So
Yeah.
I stop recording or cancel is asking me. I'll just hit
Cancel because it's recording on my end. And then if you're comfortable, you can start, I think we start letting board members in first and then everyone else in after.
Okay.
And then see how the pictures, like over my name, there's a little box in the top right corner that has 3 blue dots if you put your mouse over it.
I see that.
And you click that, and there's rename. You can rename people. So like, I see Vernon Brand is in the waiting room. You can rename her to Cindy Brand.
Okay.
Once she's in, you can't do it until she's in.
We are still recording, just so you know.
Okay. Yep. So here's
Okay.
Everybody. The first item on the agenda is colleges reopened. And I invited a few guests and I'd like to introduce them. And if our guests would like to unmute, that would be great. So welcome Dr. Z. Safran, SUNY Canton President. Lenore Vanderzee, Executive Director for University Relations of SUNY Canton. Dr. Bill Fox, St. Lawrence University President. Lisa Kenye, Vice President of Community and Employee Relations. And Ben Dixon, you're here, right? Ben is the Administrative Coordinator of Associated Colleges of St. Lawrence Valley. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And as we all know, the colleges are reopening. So this is just an opportunity for Bill, V, and whoever, just to give us a brief statement on how you're feeling, and we'll go from there. And as we all know, the opening plans are on each website, as well as on the Associated Colleges website. And there was a really good interaction that was recorded between the St. Lawrence County Chamber and the Associated Colleges, which included our Potsdam friends down the road. So I would encourage everybody to read those documents and have a listen, because that was a really good session, and the details were discussed. So okay, so
Marianne, if you don't mind my jumping in, I will note I will put in the chat the link to the Return to Campus web page for the Associated Colleges, which has all of the things you just mentioned.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, Zvi, shall we start with you?
Sure. I guess what I'll say is we're looking forward to our students returning. It's been a little bit lonely on the campus without them. And of course, students are such an important part of life here in Canton and in St. Lawrence County. So the place it just isn't the same, okay, without them. So we're really looking forward to their return. I think everybody knows that our classes are going to start on the 31st, and that our students are going to be coming between the 17th and the 30th at various points. Some are coming a little earlier because they're RDs, or they're involved in athletics, or something else. Okay, but all of our students should be here by the 30th. And our classes start on the 31st. Our students, as they arrive, are going to be tested, and they're going to self-quarantine. And they will have self-quarantined, in fact, before coming back to campus as well for 7 days. And so when they come onto campus, they're going to be tested, and they're going to be self-quarantining until we've got the results, right, which should be within a day or two. And those who are found to be negative, okay, are going to be released from quarantine. And those who are found to be positive, right, we've got spaces that have been established, okay, for isolation. And so we've got a solid plan. It's been reviewed, right, by the local health authorities and by SUNY and so forth. And, on the campus is going to look, a little bit different, okay, because our classrooms are set up for greater social distancing. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of our students, we've always had a lot of students learning online. In a typical year, about 30% of our students are taking all their courses or most of their courses online. It'll probably be higher, okay, this year. And, but we'll still have, lots of students taking classes in a face-to-face or a hybrid fashion. And this is especially important for laboratories and for clinicals, okay, because it's important that students in SANE nursing get, the hands-on program that they need in order to become, great nurses. And so, we've also done quite a number of things in terms of safety on the campus. And of course, the most important things are that all of our students are aware that, in terms of safety for themselves, for their fellow students, and for our community, right, we're being very rigorous about the necessity for social distancing, for wearing a mask, okay, and, regular hand washing, hand sanitizer, things like that, okay, because, our two primary goals have always been, providing an excellent education and also keeping our community safe. And so that's kind of where we are. First students, I think, arrive on the 17th for us.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Fox.
Thanks, Marianne. I want to begin by just thanking this board and the village too for its tremendous support in helping us get ready for a return to fall activity in person here on St. Lawrence campus. Without the community behind us, which we feel every day, I don't think we could have gotten our plans in such a great shape. I said to our board of trustees just last week that if any place in America has a shot at getting this as close to normal as possible with all the variables of a pandemic, Canton and St. Lawrence is where I'm putting my money. We've got, in this community, low rates of infection, and we're bringing students in from around the world with, I think, all the precautions that you would expect of us. I'll just say a couple things, and then Sophia and I can take some questions. St. Lawrence's model and plan differ a little bit from other colleges in our state and region. We are spreading the calendar and also spreading the enrollment with, of course, allowance for elasticity and contingencies. We're going to run a 3-semester academic year, and that way we can offer students at least 2 semesters in person. But it also means we will not be at our optimum capacity. We are intentionally at a lower capacity, de-densifying our population so that we have plenty of swing space for quarantine on campus. Our registration for the fall has gone extremely well in terms of families who want to be here, and will be around 1,700 students in person. About 250 will be fully remote, and about 40 students will be local commuters coming from home, mainly here in Canton. The enrollments, there are students who are electing to choose a spring term, summer term, and we have comparable numbers already registered for January, and then May, June, and July. So we're very pleased with the way it's taken shape. We have 140 rooms on campus reserved for students who may need to be quarantined or isolated. We will be using approximately 25 rooms at the University Inn, not for quarantine, but for the students who are both negative and healthy. So I would just say athletics is a big part of our campus life. We're going to miss, the fall sports. I think golf and cross country can pretty much continue as planned, but football and men's and women's soccer, field hockey will not be played this coming semester. Some of the teams will be practicing, and we've got very, I think, rigorous protocols for their activity. I know on the minds of at least a few of you, a question about St. Lawrence hockey, maybe hanging over August thoughts already. Nothing's been decided in the conference, the ECAC. It would appear to me that the women's part of that conference has pretty much determined that conference only play and would not happen until January. And I would expect the men's side to probably follow that path. I think everybody's has been waiting for the big national conferences and football to decide their fate for competition. So I think that we are going to have to all accept the fact that as hard as we've all worked, there's some trial and error in all this. We have with the students a social contract called the Laurentian Pact, which obligates them to certain expectations in terms of conduct and social arrangements. And we aren't going to kid around at all with maintaining those standards. I think our student life professionals are ready to make sure the rules are enforced. But we also can't expect our students to live as if they're, imprisoned. And so as airtight as we've tried to make this, there are imperfections to expect. There will be students who will test positive, and we just have to accept that on the front end and respond appropriately. I think that's the one worry I have within our own St. Lawrence community, and also here in Canton, that we'll have some positive tests and people will begin to get over anxious. We have a great relationship with the county health department, St. Lawrence Health Systems. We're testing everybody who's on campus through the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. So the first 15 days, we will have a courier taking specimens to those labs with a 24-hour result expected. So that's where we stand. We've already welcomed back 50 or 60 international students who are now quarantining on campus. It's going really well. And then next weekend, we begin to welcome back students from New York State and around the country. We have fewer than 100 students who come from states that are on the governor's travel list. And we've been very clear about the expectations and rules for them to quarantine in state before they arrive on campus, and to be tested before they arrive, and they're tested once they get here. So that's how we're approaching this. I think a lot of common sense and a lot of science. We aren't under any illusion about the the risk or the danger, but we feel like we can manage this and give our students and our community a very, very positive fall experience. Thanks for the time, Marianne.
Okay. Would Lisa or Lenore like to add anything? Or Ben? I'm not sure.
I'll add just a word about the testing. We will be testing our students, as Dr. Fox said, as they arrive. We'll be testing all of them again 2 weeks later, and then we'll be testing every week. So about 25% of our student body will be chosen to be tested on any given Tuesday. We're also requiring our employees to be tested. Those clinics are the first next week, 2 weeks later, and then the weekly clinics thereafter until November. So we're working very, very hard to be observant of our students and employees' health status so that if and when we do have a positive case, we can manage it very, very quickly and keep it contained.
Thank you, Lisa. Lenore?
We'll also be doing periodic testing throughout the semester on campus. It's been a real pleasure to work with our colleagues at St. Lawrence and with the other associated colleges on this. A lot of that with Ben's tremendous coordination of some very complicated schedules. But I think we're all working together, giving each other good ideas, best practices, and I think we're all working with the same goal, and that's to keep our students, faculty, staff, and community safe and healthy, both physically and economically.
Thank you, Lenore. Ben?
I'll just, I think the primary thing that I would like to add is really an extension of what my colleagues have shared, in that I'd just like to recognize the tremendous collaboration that has happened between the 5 universities that have been working in the associated colleges with various community entities. We have been working very closely with St. Lawrence County Public Health, St. Lawrence Health Systems, the municipal governments, law enforcement. We've worked with the St. Lawrence County Reopening Task Force, with the North Country Regional Control Room, with the St. Lawrence County Legislature. It has been a tremendous amount of collaboration happening amongst all of these entities, and it's a great thing to see. It's I think very indicative of the North Country, that it's a lot of great communities, a lot of great partners working together to try to ensure the well-being of our communities. And yeah, it's been a ton of collaboration all summer long, and I'd like to especially thank the town board for all of your help. I appreciate the help in coming together over the course of the summer. I appreciate the connections that you provided with the law enforcement community as we approach the start of the semester, and everything else you've done, your Black Lives Matter resolutions. We amplified those resolutions out to our campus constituents recently, and it's been a tremendous partnership as usual. So on that front, I just tip my cap and say thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
And Marianne, if I could just say, a few more words. I'd like to add my own thanks to the board here, and to our mayor, our town supervisor, and as Ben said, our law enforcement community, and so many other people in the North Country. I guess I may be the newest person up here, though I don't feel that new. Now it's been, this is 6 years now. Okay, and in terms of a community pulling together and being supportive, I've never seen anything like this anywhere else I've lived, and it's just terrific. And so I want to thank everybody who's helped make this possible.
Okay, thank you, Zvi. And likewise, we've been holding these leadership meetings for 2 months now, and it's been fast and furious, but very collaborative, respectful, dignified, and I hope I'm sure it's going to continue. Board members, does anybody have any questions of our guests? Tim?
Well, just more of a comment, I guess. I really appreciate hearing from the colleges and all the work that's gone into this. And I kind of, every year when the students return is, you can feel it in the air in Canton and you can hear things. And, I know all the work the colleges do to remind their students that they are citizens of our community. And sometimes there's growing pains with that. And I've always tried to remind myself if, the biggest problem we have in Canton is that there's some loud noises and yells at night, and I might wake up to some plastic cups in my yard, then all things considered, I'll take that. But it's more important this year than ever that the students, act as good guests in our community, members of our community for the while time they're here, and more important than ever that we act as good hosts in every way possible in terms of, implementing the protections of COVID and in all aspects of welcoming a diverse population into our community. Hopefully the efforts continue both ways to make that as beneficial as possible, because it must be a symbiotic relationship. Canton wouldn't be the place it is without the colleges. Obviously the colleges wouldn't be in the place they are without Canton. So let's make it work.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any other board member? Okay, with that said, I would just want to end on two positive notes. Thank you to SUNY Canton. What a wonderful food giveaway that happened this morning. I get the cold chills just thinking about, it was a wonderful collaborative effort. And by the time I got up there, the first car that was there was at 7 a.m. and it went around the entire campus. And I think it was 2.5 hours straight that probably close to 500 or 600 families received food. This was sponsored by the American Dairy Association. And if it wasn't for SUNY Canton, we didn't know where we were going to be able to host that. So thank you. They asked if we want to do it again. And I said, absolutely. So, and then on another note, Dr. Fox, I understand congratulations are in order on your retirement. And thank you for everything you've done for the town and village of Canton. And you're not gone yet. You still have a year, I understand. So we're looking forward to that, but congratulations. And we appreciate what you've done.
Mary Ann, Linda Casserly had her hand up for a question.
Oh, Dr. Fox wants to say something first.
Oh, I was just thinking of Johnny Carson's alleged epitaph, which was, I'll be right back. I'm not going away too soon.
Okay, all right. Linda? Did you have a question, Linda? You got to unmute yourself.
Trying.
Linda?
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to reiterate what you said to thank Dr. Fox for his years of service. And as the historian, I'm sure your name will go down in the history archives. And thank you for everything you've done.
Well said, Linda. Thank you. Okay, you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We'd love to have you, but certainly understand that you're busy and you've probably had a long day. So enjoy your evening, or feel free to stay with us. So, okay.
I'd just like to say that should questions come up either later in this meeting or at any other time, we're really, we're very open to hearing from you and getting information to you as soon as possible. So please be in touch, and we will as well.
Okay, very good. All right, everybody good?
I will just note the contact information for the return to campus point people, Lenore and Lisa, as well as the point people from Clarkson and Potsdam, are on that website that I referenced in the chat. So if you do want to get in touch with the point people, check out that page. The numbers, phone numbers and emails are right there. So that's an easy way to be in touch with them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'll also, at the risk of stepping out of bounds here, I will I will tell Tim Danahy that I think my headset is way cooler than his.
All right, there we go.
This is Lee. I just wanted to add that following the call with the colleges you referenced earlier, Jenny and I put information about the college reopening plans on our website. So that's under the COVID page, I think, information for businesses. There's a link to the college reopening plans, and I'm guessing it's probably the same link that Ben is sharing now. So that is on our webpage as well.
Very good. Thank you, Lee. Okay, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is County Legislator.
Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome. Representative update. I don't see that any of our representatives are here. Lisa, can you confirm that, please? Any of our county legislators here?
Nobody signed in today.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve 3 sets of minutes from 6:29, 7:08, and 7:31. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, changes? Okay, board members, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Bye.
carry.
Aye.
Okay. Is Jim made it on?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Hi, Jim. The next item is supervisor's report. Hello, John.
Good evening. Thank you, Marianne. So you should all have the report in front of you, hopefully. On page 1 of the report is a summary of fund balances, and I would point out that the top section now matches exactly the AUD that's been filed with and accepted by the state. The second half of the page shows the current year changes in fund balance. And you can see that General Fund A has increased by $47,000. Town Outside B has increased by $156,000. Townwide Highway has increased by 203, and Part Town Highway has increased by 16,000, and Fire has increased by 14,000. So if we go to the next page, we can look at the A General Fund, and we're 7 months into the fiscal year here. So in an ideal world, things would be at 58% of budget. So if we keep that in mind as we go through here, it may help. And to start right at the beginning of that page, justice fees are only at 27.5% of budget. So that's less than half of where you would expect them based on our budget at this point in time. Town clerk fees likewise are 27%. Dog license fees are 48%. So overall, the total income is at 61.4%, which is a bit higher than the 58.3% that we would expect at this time. Going down through the expenses, same would hold true here. We should be at about 58%. Personal service is at 61 on the next page. Judicial is at 65.9. Town council 56. Tax collector 64.4%. Town clerk's office 61.3%. Attorney 39.3. So total staff is at 53.9% of budget, which is just a hair under where we were projected at 58%. Shared services is 70.9% of budget. On the next page, the special items are 71% of budget. Dog control 47%. Public health 61%. Going down through until you get to adult activities, contractual expenses at 94% there. And transportation administration, personal services at 61%. So all in all, the total expenditures are at 54.8% of budget at this point in time. So again, we're a little bit under where we might expect to be based on the budget. And the surplus to date for this fund, as I mentioned, is about $47,000 through July 31st. If we skip over to the next section, we can look at B outside. And you can see here the revenue is pretty much ahead of budget. We're at 71.7% of budget. The big thing there is sales tax, which is at 75.2% of budget at this point in time. The other items in that section are all pretty much below the 58% that we would expect from the budget. On the expenditure side, shared services are 87.5% of budget. I'll just hit the ones that are problematic here. Go over to the next page, please, of this fund. You can see that contractual expenses for zoning are at 77.8% of budget. And safety inspection with the personal service contractual expenses are at 59% of budget. So overall, the expenditures are at 30.1% of the budgeted amount. So that's why at this point in time, we're showing a surplus in the B fund of $156,794. That will catch up with itself.
Yes.
The next fund is the DA Townwide Highway. And here we've actually taken in 100.4% of our budgeted revenue because most of the revenue comes from real property taxes, and they're at 100%. Then we have some self-insurance recoveries that weren't even budgeted for. Going through the expenses, you can see that highway is at 82.3% of budget at this point in time. Equipment's at 100%, but contractual expenses are at 58.7%. Snow removal, 83.4% of budget. Highway brush and weed at 43.5% of budget. So overall, total expenses for DA Townwide Highway are at 72.5% of budget. And I think it's fair to say we would expect to be a little bit closer to budget at this point in time in the year because we're only on July 31st and we could have a lot of winter and other things happening before the end of the year. On the next page, you have the, we have the DB Part-Town Highway. And income here is at 47.4% of budget. Sales tax distribution is at 39.9%. The CHIPS money is at 64.9%. If we look down through the expenses, you can see they're all well under budget, so that total expenditures are 45.2% of the budget to date. And as a result, we have a surplus in this fund of $16,000. Next section, we have special fire. Basically, we have 100% of our budget, and we spent 100% of our expenditures, or 98.2% of our expenditures, sorry, and we have net income of $14,000 at this point in time. That comes about because Morley, we spent under budget at this point by $4,800, and the income is about $9,000 over what we had budgeted. Next section is special lighting. Basically 100% of our revenues here, and we spent 100% of our, or 56.3% of our expenses. So we have a surplus of $1,700. Joint activity has had hardly any activity at all. If you go to the last page, you can see the cash accounts compared to last month and compared to a year ago. And you can see that the general fund A, we have $257,000 of cash. That's down about $57,000 from June, but it's $60,000 ahead of the same time last year. Fund B, we have $270,000 of cash. We had $283,000 last month. At this time last year, we had $276,000. So that's about the same. Likewise with CD, $75,000. Currently, $75,000 last month and $69,000 last year. Then down to DADB cash, we have $627,000. Currently, we had $721,000 last month, and a year ago we had $294,500. The other one would be the special fire and special lighting. We have $31,000 currently. We had $90,000 a month ago, but last year we only had $20,000 in that fund. So bottom line, total cash on hand, $1,348,000. That's down about $240,000 from June 30th, but it's about $335,000 greater than it was on July 31st, 2019. I'm happy to address any questions if anyone has them. And just to emphasize again, the AUD has been filed with the state and accepted. So that's done for another year.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
And the nice thing about the AUD is this is the last year that we had to submit a separate AUD for the joint accounts. That's going away for the following year because we put everything under the A fund. So hopefully they won't have any more questions about it. So
They've also promised an upgrade in their software for next year, which is sorely needed.
absolutely, absolutely. And we'll see what the training is on that.
Yeah.
Any other questions from board members? All right, thank you so much, John. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. My pleasure.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is correspondence. As you recall, we passed a resolution for the State Route 68 paving project, asking that they support the Complete Streets recommendations. And unfortunately, they said, thank you for your correspondence regarding the resolution supporting widening and other work on State Route 68 in the village and town of Canton. Unfortunately, they're not able to help out with that because of the funding of it. They said widening to accommodate bicycle lanes along the nearly 14-mile corridor would require a major capital project, including significant right-of-way acquisition, both of which are beyond scope and budget of the pending maintenance treatment. So we did get a response from them regarding that.
If I may, Mary Ann, I would just like to say that I'm disappointed in that, and I'm even more disappointed in the fact that they're ignoring the request to still put a groove down the center line of the road, because on a narrow road like that, the groove further complicates the safety of cyclists and pedestrians because it pushes people to the edge of the road away from the middle. And so it makes a bad situation worse. And I think that, and well, I'll talk to the Complete Streets Task Force about this, but I think that it would be their recommendation to maybe a follow-up letter emphasizing our concern for that center line groove on that stretch of road.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear back from the committee. Anyone else regarding this? Okay. We received two other items that are not listed. We just recently received, and Lisa, I will give you the copy of this for the record. This is, we've been served papers, Slick Network Solutions against the assessor of the town of Canton, as well as the Board of Assessment Review and the town of Canton. It's a notice of petition. Eric's aware of this, and they feel that our assessment is excessive. So they're taking us to court, but we're not the only ones. Also listed is, I believe, the village of Canton, Rensselaer Falls, might be part of that as well, but I would have to have that confirmed. So we received that yesterday, and Eric's fully aware of it, and it's unfortunate, but we're going to court on that. The next item that we got just today is another matter that's going to Supreme Court. St. Lawrence Hotel Ventures against the Board of Assessment Review, the assessor in the town of Canton. They're not happy with the current assessment that's been placed on their property. So I forwarded these two items to Eric, and then we'll go from there. So Lisa, I will make sure that you get these for the record. And there you have it. Okay, Audit Committee. Tim?
That's me. Let me get my note up here. I emailed these amounts out to the board and the clerks earlier today. Let's go spend some of that money John said we had. A fund, $30,051.66. B fund, $5,884.58. DA, $9,238.13. DB, $169,249.79. That's a lot of the paving projects we've talked about. Special fire, $12,596. That's mostly the foreign fire money being distributed out to the departments. And trust and agency, $15,751.15.
Okay. Any questions of Tim? I need a motion to approve the expenditures.
So moved.
Tim, is there a second?
Second.
Karen? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, carried. Okay, department reports. Let's see. Let's start with you, Jeff.
Good evening, folks.
Why'd you take your video off?
Because it screws up my audio.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'm learning this computer stuff. I'm getting there. So, business is good. Dairy Queen, I know that's not the town, but the Dairy Queen should be open sometime in September, they hope. So everybody that wants a blizzard, get one. We have quite a few construction permits out there. This is the first time that the town is issued more building permits than the village. So that's unusual for us for at least as long as I've been here. There's still the ever-present garbage complaints that I deal with, and we're working on those. But other than that, business as usual. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any board members have any questions of Jeff? All right, thank you, Jeff. Cindy.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have anything to add to my report, just that we got a letter down from the state to remove, it was about 15 star exemptions for people that were late in paying their property taxes over a year. So we had to remove them. So unless they come forward before September 30th, then they could get it back on or something. So that's about it. Any questions for me? No.
No, you and Lee have been out collecting a lot of data.
I'm sorry, what?
You've been out collecting data.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. We're on the St. Lawrence campus, St. Lawrence University campus, the last 2 days, and it was hot out there, but yeah, it's been interesting. So.
Well, we really appreciate the county and all their support with you doing that. So
yeah, we got stopped a couple of times by security, but they were pretty good, and they kind of filled us in on a couple of the buildings and everything and where to go. So they were pretty good. So
okay, well, that's good that you didn't get in trouble.
No.
Okay. Any board members have any questions of Cindy? All right, thank you, Cindy.
Okay.
Let's see, Jim Putman.
I have nothing to add at this time.
You know any highlights? How's the beach going?
It's open. Attendance is lower than what it has been in previous years, but I believe that's to be expected.
What about the kayak rentals?
Well below what it was last year as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well below what it was last year as well. I don't think we've, I think the total so far this year is around $230 in rented kayaks. So.
Is that being advertised? Has there been any advertisements about the availability of the kayaks?
We put it out on social media. It's on the Village and Town website. Other than that, and it was also listed in the initial press release that we did when we opened the beach.
Okay. Well, I see Adam Atkinson has joined our meeting. Adam, would be a great story with those kayaks. Okay. Any board members have any questions of Jim? All right. Thank you, Jim. Lee? She's sitting outside too.
Hello, I am, yes.
Hello.
You saw my report. We're just plugging away with the grants that we have in process. We've submitted a number of reimbursement requests at this point that we're waiting on both for the town and the village. Jeff mentioned Dairy Queen. Their scheduled reopening is September 18th. So we're working with them on the job hiring process to fulfill the grant requirements for that project. So that's exciting. Work on the fountain has begun, as most people have likely seen. It's a lot of fencing and disruption there. That work will go into the fall, late fall at least at this point. I don't have a lot of things to highlight other than I just learned today that's not in my report that the Regional Economic Development Councils will not be doing the CFA process this year. That was somewhat expected. A lot of the funds have been frozen, not knowing status of things and potential funding from the federal government. So I just learned today, as I said, that won't be happening this year. But they have put out some surveys trying to survey the businesses as to what the needs are in the communities and needs are for the businesses. So we distributed that to our through our newsletter today, I think. So we're trying to respond to that and keep that information flowing to them as to what the needs are in the community. We're working on some sign campaigns with the Industrial Development Agency, with the local community, with the Chamber of Commerce, both the county and Canton Chambers of Commerce, to get some signage out there, primarily to welcome students back into the community, make sure all of them feel welcome here, and also to remind them of that we are a mask wearing community, to keep their social distancing and those kinds of things, but also that we want to see them. But those are our expectations, and we'll be placing signs. Some are already out there. We'll be doing some more in the next few days, trying to get things out there before the majority of students arrive. So that's a big part of what we're working on now.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions of Lee?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Lee. Thanks for that. I know there's more vendors at the farmers market this year, but do you have any sense of what the traffic is like there this year? Has it increased or decreased with folks' anxiety?
Just anecdotally and speaking with the market manager when I've gone there myself, she said that it's been quite busy. So that's good. That's the only information that I have is really anecdotal at this time. If you're interested, I could maybe dig a little deeper and trying to get more information about that.
I don't know how they actually assess that, and but yeah, I am curious to see how direct face-to-face contact is working out for the producers.
Well, I know there's a number of programs that they coordinate that they can probably document numbers because they give various tokens and things like that through, and they probably have documentation on how many of those have been processed this year in comparison. So at least that, which largely would probably look at the more low to moderate income types of populations that may be utilizing the farmers market. So at least that type of data may be available. So I can look into that.
Great, thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Any other questions of Lee? Okay, thank you, Lee, for all your work. Lisa.
I was just coasting along here. Things are going well. Mike Shaw came back to the office and replaced the poly wrap with the real poly glass so we can see through a lot better. Heidi and I both did the training on the discrimination and the harassment. And Terry came into our office one day when I was out, and Heidi set him up with that. Hunting licenses went on sale on Monday. We're very close to getting our system up and running. They did a new system all across the state, and we've had some trouble. But we had a very promising call this afternoon, so we're hoping tomorrow. Yeah, we've just been really busy. We do everything. It's amazing what they call for and want and what we do for people. Things are going well with the distancing and people wearing their masks. And yeah. So has anybody got any questions of me? Be willing to entertain them.
Any questions of Lisa?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I mean, I can think about it after, I guess.
Okay. School taxes, when does that start?
They'll send them out probably the 29th of this month, and we'll start collecting, you know, the day after Labor Day. No, Labor Day is later, so that 1st of September we'll be collecting.
And Lisa, did they, you and I had discussed about the possibility of them putting on the actual tax letter that, you know, we encourage mail-in?
I talked to somebody up there at Real Property, but I don't think they're intending on doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about, you know, having a little blurb of encourage people to mail them instead of coming in person, but there was a big request for it.
Mm-hmm. And we also have the drop box in the foyer.
And they already brought supplies. They brought a ton of paper and the stamps and envelopes, and they bring a lot of stuff down to us. So,
okay, very good. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Lisa. Linda. Can't hear you. Yep, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, if there's not any questions, I can add to my report that I met with the new county historian, Nancy Lefebvre from Lisbon. She is now taking over for Randy. And we had a meeting a week and a half ago on a Saturday, and I had never been up to the 3rd floor in the Silas Wright House. It is unbelievable. It's unbelievable with the artifacts they have, that they have not changed more exhibits. So I will be volunteering and helping at that point, but there will be an ad in the paper shortly for a new director. Randy is leaving, and that's leaving a huge hole in their activities right now. Tracy will remain, but Nancy Lefebvre was the historian at Lisbon, and she is taking on a huge role right now and wanting to bring the museum back up to snuff and helping with new exhibits at least twice a year instead of 13 years. So I was very excited about that. And then I don't know how many of you know Lynn and Nils Eckfeldt. They lived on Woods Drive, and a co-worker of Lynn's at St. Lawrence Library has been looking for her for the last month because her email is disconnected, her cell phone is not working. So I had the best time finding the information. And they have, Lynn and Nils are on the road to Indiana. They've left Canton, lock, stock, and barrel. And Carol can now contact her. That was through Judy DeGraff, so that was a big help. And Bill Rood has me working on what was the Judson Heights Dairy. He wants the information on who owned it previously in the history. So I started that work today. And it's been very busy in the office. Not a lot of people coming in, but a lot of phone calls. And yeah, so it's been fun to be back in 2.5 days now during the week. I liked working from home, but I get distracted with the grandkids and everything. So it was good to be full-time 1 week in the office. Oh, well, full-time is my hours are allowed. Any questions? Oh, did you like the poem by Jim Todd on Silent?
Love that poem. I love that poem.
He was my first mentor and didn't come in until a year later to introduce himself. And I missed him when he passed. But I thought it could help us to this time.
Thank you for sharing that.
Any questions?
Any questions from any board member? All right, did I miss anyone? I don't think I did.
I'm logging off.
Okay, you can mute yourself if you'd like, Linda.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna stay at the meeting, but I'm logging off.
Oh, okay, Linda. Okay. All right. I need a motion to accept department reports.
So moved.
Karen?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Okay. Committee reports.
Well, I have a few.
Okay.
Let's see, the Complete Streets Task Force. So I wanted to clarify a couple things about committees. The Marianne, Mike, Mayor Dalton, and Carol and myself are going to be looking at the committees and really fine tuning, or I guess identifying which are standing committees and which are appointed committees, because there seems to be confusion out there about the process, about whether names are just moved forward for informational purposes or there needs to actually be board of action. We may be tapping Eric for a little help with that to get some clarity, but anyway, that's just a side note. So Complete Streets Task Force, which I'm not on the committee, but I am the board liaison. The task force would like to nominate Phil LaMarche. I think everybody might be familiar with Phil, to now serve on that committee. I think that committee was set up as a standing committee, and I think it is in need of board appointment or board approval. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't know how you want to go about that. And then the WAC, the Waterfront Advisory Committee, has been reconstituted with Tom Lingen as the chair, and I've been attending those meetings as the board liaison. And they have 3 names that they want to move forward with to round out that committee. One of them is the former head of planning, Keith Zimmerman, for the county. John Danis, who lives in the town of Canton, and then Mayor Hammond. I've been in communication with him, and he's come up with a representative for the village of Rensselaer Falls, and that's Jacob Morley. So I've reached out to all 3, and all 3 are very interested in serving. But again, I don't know what the actual process is, so I'm just putting that out there. And the highway committee, I guess we'll get into road. I don't know when you want to talk about road projects, but I do want to pass on. I got a message from Star Carter at Dank, and Terry's been very helpful with them. He's got 50% of the roads marked where culverts are. So they're going to start gathering that data next Tuesday. So they're ahead of schedule with Terry's help. And then Terry's also offered to have an operator help them identify where some of these assets are on the gravel roads, which is a little bit more difficult. So they just wanted to say, just give a progress report and thank Terry for his cooperation. So I wanted to pass that along.
Okay. For purposes of the appointments or the support, Eric, should we do a formal resolution or for these committee appointments? Would that suffice, approving them tonight and then maybe doing a resolution next month? Or what would you suggest?
Yeah, Marianne, I mean, the board is typically responsible for the appointments and a resolution is sufficient. I think you'd be okay with that.
So tonight we can support those people. We appreciate their willingness to step up, and then at the next month's meeting, we'll just do a formal resolution.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Do we need a resolution or just a motion?
Yeah, I think if you want to do something formal so that it's in the record next month, Marianne, I think that's fine. But I think just a motion tonight will suffice, right? Those are board appointments. It can be done by motion.
Okay, so,
Would you like me to give you the names again?
yes.
Yeah, Bob, why don't you just make those as 2 separate motions for each committee?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Phil LaMarche to the Complete Streets Task Force.
I'll second that.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Phil to a few more committees, but
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
I won't.
Okay.
All right, so we have a first and a second for Phil Lamarche to serve on the Complete Streets Task Force. Any further questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 Carried.
And for the Waterfront Advisory Committee, I'd like to make the motion to appoint Keith Zimmerman, John Danis, and Jacob Morley to the Waterfront Advisory Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim Smith. Any further questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 Carried. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other committee reports?
I'll just chime in on court, not really an official court committee report, but I talked with Rosemary yesterday and Mark a little bit during the court session. Seems like the court reopening has gone fairly smoothly. Again, there's a check-in tent out in front of the building. There's very clear direction for all court participants to head downstairs into the court. Lester's doing the security screening in the same spot as usual. Courtroom set up with the chairs socially distanced, but with pretty minimal, people waiting around. And then they're exiting out on the Minor Street side of the building. Yesterday was the second court session after the reopening for the month. The attendance is way down. It appears that many of the defendants on the docket are not appearing, so there may be some lack of awareness that court is in fact back in session. So I don't want to speak too much on behalf of the justices, but safe to say that if there is an appearance ticket pending, then everybody needs to respond one way or the other. If it's a vehicle and traffic ticket that doesn't require an in-person appearance, certainly call the court clerk's office and they may be able to work it out that the appearance isn't needed. But it seems like the reopening's gone fairly smoothly so far. It's not necessarily a bad thing that the attendance rate is low to get that off the ground, but at some point those that are required to appear need to deal with their appearance ticket one way or the other. And again, just on economic development, that Lee has sent out a number of application forms for the recovery program that we've made available through the RBEG funds. I think we're still waiting for a completed application to be returned. It's 0% money. It's not free money. It's not forgivable, but it's 0%. So it's out there still and available for local businesses.
Any other committee reports? Okay, old business. Actually, if the board wouldn't mind, if we could go to number 3. I see our planning chair. Mr. Morgan, are you still with us? He might have stepped away. Yes. Oh, Mike, are you there? Yes. Okay, well, he's getting settled. If we could talk about the energy storage law. It's my understanding the planning board, worked with the county on that, and that was forwarded to Eric. Oh, hi, Mike. I see Robin behind you now that she's retired. So, oh, you need to unmute yourself, please. Oh.
I apologize. Did you ask me a question?
No, I'm waiting for Mike to Okay, you all
Am I
set?
here?
All right, did I catch you off
Yeah.
guard there? Okay, so if you want to say a few words about what the planning board has done, and then we'll turn it over to Eric on what his thoughts are, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, if you remember what we did for the solar law, we met, Jim and Bob and I met several times with Matilda from the planning office, and then had a rather robust email exchange. When we came to do the solar storage law, NYSERDA put out a model law. Matilda wanted to take that back to her office and look at it and see how it fit our community. So they made a bunch of suggestions that we passed on to the planning board. The board all agreed with what the county office did, except we did add the one caveat that if the project was too big and over our heads, we would have the right to hire an expert and the developer would pay for that. I don't know. The language, Eric, probably needs to be changed, but that's the intent.
All right, Eric, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, Mary, I'd be happy. Mike, what I was hoping is that you and Bob and Jim and I could sit down and go through it. I had some questions on some of the language and the intent on some of the questions and some of the options that were considered. And I was hopeful before we actually, set it out for a public hearing, we'd have a chance to iron some of that out and just walk our way through it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
I mean, something we can coordinate with Bob to set up a Zoom call or, where we can put the document up on the screen and just kind of walk through it.
Sure, I could send out an email to the four of us, and we could coordinate a Zoom for next week at some point. Eric, do you see anything that would prohibit us from? We're coming up on needing to either extend the moratorium or probably set a public hearing, which both would require a public hearing. So do you see anything in there that is a deal breaker that we shouldn't go ahead with set the public hearing for passage of the law?
I suspect there's going to be some changes, right? And I think just as far as timing, you've got to have everything in its final form at least 7 days beforehand.
Sure.
And
but
I'm a little concerned about the timing, whether we're actually going to get it complete before the 7 days prior to the September meeting. And people typically like to have a copy of that so they can digest it before it's got to be in final form.
Sure. I think the moratorium ends, if I'm not mistaken, is at the end of September. So, okay, so I guess you just want us to play it by ear then. So does it make sense then to set the public hearing to extend the moratorium just to buy us a little bit more time? Because we'd have to have the extended moratorium public hearing at the September meeting. The September meeting either has to adopt the law and have the public hearing or extend the moratorium. It's one or the other, right?
If I could just let you know, when looking at our calendar, we do have a budget work session scheduled for the 23rd as well. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, if we wanted to set a public hearing for that date, that gives us, 40 days. But
yeah, no, I like that. And then whichever public hearing it is, if it's for the either adoption of the local law or the extension of the moratorium, right? Marion can just post the appropriate notice for depending on what the committee comes back with.
Okay.
Eric, it might be helpful if you could maybe email your main concerns ahead of time before we meet, just so we can all have a chance to look at them.
Yep, absolutely.
So do we have enough time then at our September 9th meeting to decide which public hearing we'll be scheduling for the 23rd? review of the law or extension of the moratorium. That should be enough time, is
Well,
it
that,
not?
I guess, as far as I'm concerned, yes. I guess it's up to Eric how deep the changes are that he's looking at, or the questions he has.
Yeah, Tim, there should be enough time. If we get the notice out on the 10th for the 23rd, that's more than sufficient time.
Okay.
If we publish the 12th or the 13th, it'll be fine.
That works for me.
And our board meeting for September, it would be Thursday the 10th, because we've switched to Thursdays now. And that is Labor Day week, so that Monday is off. Okay, so we're tabling that item, and Jim and Bob and Mike Morgan and Eric will get together, and we'll see where we're at for the 10th meeting. We can always add it on the agenda if we need to. Otherwise, we've got that other budget session.
And Eric, just following up on what Mike asked, so if you could send that out by next week, then we at least have some time to digest your thoughts before we get together.
All right.
Helpful.
Yeah, and Bob, I'm going to reach out to you directly just to make sure that I understand what the intent was on a couple things.
Sure.
And then I'll throw some notes together for the group, if that's okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, as always, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
And I likely won't, but thank you.
Good to see you, and thank you for all that you're doing for the town.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Have a good night.
Take care.
Okay. Let's go up to the NYPA easement agreement. Lisa, would you mind calling that woman as well? Does the board
I did text her a little while ago and asked her what her address was to her, and I started out with, "Hi, this is Lisa," and now she has just said Lisa with a question mark, so I will call her.
We have a constituent that saw this item on the agenda and called Lisa, our town clerk, with a question. So while we're waiting for her, as you remember, this was an item, was it last month or the month before, about NYPA wanting to have a permanent easement with us. Or excuse me, agreement with us. So does it make sense that we entertain that question first?
I think there's some confusion. I think we're working on an easement on town property, and I think this is going to have more to do with the general NYPA easement through the town of Canton, because there's no residential properties on the town property.
Right. So, and then, I guess we'll
find out.
Yep. So Lisa, you're muted. Okay.
So pending the discussion here, are we otherwise in a position to approve this agreement at this point, Eric, I guess, in terms of?
Yeah, I would say so, Tim. They removed all of the warranty language that I was concerned about. And based on that, the easement is, as long as the board is happy with the map showing what they're planning on doing, I don't have any problem with the language of the easement.
Okay, Lisa?
Okay, so I just called her and asked her address, and she lives in the town of Winthrop.
Okay.
She has my cell phone number. She's going to call me in the morning, and I'll direct her in the right direction.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So are we in a position to vote on this?
Yes.
I believe we are. So I need a motion to enter into a grant of easement with NIPA in the town of Canton.
Motion.
Let's just make sure the record reflects for town-owned property in the town of Canton.
Yes.
To avoid any confusion.
Okay, so Bob, do you want to reiterate that motion?
I make a motion to enter into an agreement, an easement agreement with NIPA for the town property in the town of Canton.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions, concerns, discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll get that executed and sent out. Thank you for your work on that, Eric. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, the ethics law. We're back to that again. We tabled that pending Eric's discussion with the county attorney. And so we need to revisit it.
I'm in favor of moving forward with town nominations. It sounds like the village is also in agreement and also have their own name. So let's go back to Plan A. It will not require us to change the existing law at all, and we would just move forward like we were previously intended.
For
I
me,
completely agree. Sorry, go ahead.
the one question I have is, and I think Eric checked with this, the staff to the ethics board. You know, who would be doing the legwork, you know, that type of thing. The county attorney is the staff to the county ethics board. So I think we need to be clear on who's going to be doing that legwork. And I would suggest our labor attorney, Jim Romer's office, to be considered for that. You know, we have a contract with him. The village has a contract with him. I spoke with him, and he says we do this all the time with other municipalities, and you know, so they could provide that service. So I really think we need to think about that.
Well, and I do think that that's going to be one of the tasks of the appointed board, is to come up with how they're going to operate, including who their legal counsel will be. I don't think it should come from us necessarily.
I guess the question, yeah, I mean, the question is, do we need to revise the existing law, which is already adopted? We did adopt it, right?
Yeah. It's law.
That language wasn't in there about.
But I guess the question does it need to be? And
I don't think it needs to be. That language would need to be in how the actual ethics board operates, not the ethics law. So let's separate the two. We have an ethics law, and then there'll be need to be ground rules and protocols for how the ethics board will operate. And that's either going to be put together by us or by them if we choose to delegate that.
Eric, do you have any comment about that?
Yeah, I think having the ethics board come up with that is fine. You know, I get it constituted, see what they come up with, subject to your review. And, you know, if there's not agreement, you'd sit down with the folks in the ethics board and come up with something that makes everyone happy.
Agreed.
I think that makes sense. I mean, there may be other issues that come up as the board is constituted and sits and says, so, you know, this needs to be clarified or whatever in the law. So I think, you know, unless our respective councils say otherwise, the law is in place, it's adopted. Our next step is to impanel the board. And then if they come back and say, okay, well, we think the law is weak in this area, if we need to go back and revise the law, then we do that. You know, we don't have the hubris enough to think that we got it 100% right the first time. I think we put a lot of work into it and got real close. So if there's other things that need to be amended down the line, then we do so.
All right, Jim, what do you think?
Well, my problem that I have with it is us getting ourselves deeply involved in something that with regards to an ethics board that really oversees us. It seems funny to me that we're going to have, you know, we're talking about picking the council, we're talking about picking the people. I understand that it's not an easy thing to put this together. We found that out when, you know, when we found out the things that we didn't like about the county board. But at the same time, it seems strange to me that we're going to have a lot of say as board members in how this gets set up and how it's going to be handled. And I just feel that the further we can distance ourselves from it, the more integrity there would be in it. It seems, but you know, initially, once it gets done, then board members down the road will be distanced from it. But right now, setting us up, it seems that we've got a lot of say in something that just concerns me.
And I don't disagree, Jim, and I think that's why we kind of took a left turn and considered the county board. But I think whatever we create, and I think that the county is probably recognizing this now, we don't have lifetime appointments as board members. And I think we're creating something that needs to live and breathe longer than we are. And so our goal in writing this needs to be for the long term and not necessarily how it might affect us as temporary board members. So I think we made a great attempt of considering the county. We see flaws in that. And I mean, we're not even mandated to have an ethics board, but an ethics law with no ethics board has no teeth. So it's the board that gives it the teeth.
I would feel most comfortable doing this if we went ahead and picked the board and then let the board make the decisions beyond that about, you know, how it's going to be handled and who their counsel might be, and let them make the suggestions to us rather than us making the suggestions to them.
Absolutely, and that's what I prefaced my comments with. I totally agree. At this point, we appoint the members. They make up the rules as to how they operate.
Well, I see you, Carol. Let me just make a statement and then Carol. And I've talked to the mayor about this. I think it's critical that who's going to actually do the legwork and the paperwork. That's a critical piece.
What paperwork?
If someone puts in a concern, I mean, I'm sure there's got to be a trail of some sort.
It goes directly to the ethics board. That's the protocol that they would set up.
Right, but then who keeps that record?
They do.
Well, where? You know, I just wanted to say that we need to be clear on that. So, Carol, did you want to say something? Oh,
I do. So I really appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate the process, the direction this is all taken. We tried something, we recognized that it wasn't a great idea. I like the idea of coming back to the county or the village and the town, you know, selecting among ourselves some people. But here's the thing I think about, and I don't mind Romer. I think it's a lot to ask 4 or 5 volunteers to sketch this all out. Eric, a question that I have for you is, would it be reasonable to ask at the outset for you and Jerry to be the counsel for this board as they build themselves and figure out all they have to do? Because I know the 2 people that we've asked, who are Katie Halloran Murphy and Ryan Ames, they're very eager, they're very interested, they want to contribute in our community, but they won't know all the steps to take, as I wouldn't if I had been asked to do this. But if for example, for the start, they had access to Eric and Jerry, representing the village and the town, to just say, this is what you need to do. These are not what you need to do. These are the directions you should go. Walk through that with them, then let them make the decision. And then if we go to Romer as the staff attorney or whatever, that can be their choice, but they can make the choice, but with a little counsel of their own. So I guess my question in all of that long thing, Eric, is would that be an appropriate thing to ask the town and village council?
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, Carol. And I also don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. I think it's New York State, and there must be a lot of language circulating about how ethics boards should ideally operate.
There are, but you know what? And we're trying to do a great thing, I think, and I'm really proud of it, of trying to do it for the village and the town. But a lot of the rules and a lot of the protocols and all that are village, and NICOM has those, and a lot are town, and the Association of Town has those. And I'm happy to, I would like to invent this wheel that is the village and town wheel. But we need to recognize that if town and village are coming together, we are a little bit, maybe we're not the first in the whole wide world, but we are a little bit inventing a wheel.
And, you know, as far as records management, you know, we got to recognize that as well. So, all right.
Well, I would just say while Adam's on that we are, you know, I would like this board to be as diverse as possible in every dimension of diversity that we have available to us. And that means, you know, in village of Canton and town outside of Canton. So any citizen out there that's interested in ensuring ethical and responsible government, here's your chance, step up. So Adam, we are looking for volunteers if you're willing to help us publicize that.
I also just like to add that we did task 5 individuals with actually writing our law, and I think they did a great job of it. And they used templates from elsewhere, and so I don't see why. We've got excellent people in Canton with great minds, and I think they could do it.
Okay, so if I could recap, it looks like we're moving forward to create our own town and village ethics board. The town needs to come up with 2 nominees, and then there's 1 person that we need to agree on with the village. So we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully next month we'll be able to just say, okay, this is it, and start the process. And we'll ask our councils to be part of that once the appointments are made. So, okay, everybody good with that? All right.
Sure.
I know, Carol, things take time, but we're getting there. Okay, new business, highway committee recommendation on road projects. Jim or Bob?
Well, it's been previously circulated with the board that Terry presented 7 proposals, and the committee is recommending 6 of those proposals. One of them is income generating, a project in the village of Rensselaer Falls, and we'd like to make a motion to approve those projects as circulated. Would you like me to go through at least the names of the roads and the footage? I know Toby would probably appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Adam would appreciate it.
And Adam, okay, so proposal number 1 is doing a small paving project in the village of Rensselaer Falls, and that is income generating, so not as exciting, at least it will be for the village of Rensselaer Falls. The other project is 600 feet of Old State Road, 15 feet, an additional 1,500 feet of Judson Street Road, getting us through the worst section at the Ames intersection. 1,000 feet of the Kelly Road, that there's been some serious drainage damage out there. 3,000 feet of the Potter Road. And ultimately, some continued work on Old State Road, digging up some of the old concrete road, and getting that prepped for further paving. We've spoken with Terry about the order of operation here, and he's going to start with the Kelly Road and the paving project in the village of Rensselaer Falls, and then most likely move to Judson and Potter from there. probably not getting to Old State until after Labor Day, in which case we will know more about our ultimate CHIPS reimbursement. It's important to note we've already received 147,000 of our CHIPS money. There's still 75,000 in CHIPS and another 95,000 or so out there for emergency weather and Pave New York that we're waiting on the letter from the state so we can send in that reimbursement. The paperwork's all filled out, and as soon as we get the okay, that reimbursement is going in, and we should receive those monies, I believe, in September. But who knows how the state is going to handle that? We'll see. Anything to add, Jim?
Nope, you got it covered.
Okay, so was that a motion, Bob?
It's a motion, yes. Again, it's a motion to approve the projects as previously circulated to the board.
All right.
Second.
Second by Jim. Any further questions, concerns, or discussion?
And just so that you're aware, as Bob said, we will monitor closely the expenditures of these projects as he does them. If any of them should happen to run over for any reason, Terry's aware of it, and we will put the brakes on him if we have to, if for some reason either CHIPS or the other two, the Pave New York or emergency weather monies, take a hit from the state. So we're trying to do as much work as we can get done, and we certainly don't want to end up with a budget deficit when we get done.
As it stands right now, the state has promised us $170,000 above and beyond what we already received through CHIPS. The total for these projects is $205,000. So if all of the state money comes in, we're talking about $35,000 of local money.
Okay, and if I could just add, Mike Hammond, Mayor Hammond was in the building yesterday, and I did speak to him about we need a written agreement for the project with Rensselaer Falls, short to the point. It's my understanding that Terry gave him something in writing. I haven't seen it. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll wait.
I just haven't seen what Terry has given to Mayor Hammond, and I need to type up the agreement. So I need to follow up with Terry on that.
Again, I think it's a $4,000 project, and I think the MOU is just going to be a simple MOU for that dollar value.
Yep, but let's go back.
What other information do you need?
Well, I don't know if what he gave Mike, because Mike, he said, well, why don't we just use what Gary or Terry gave us? And I'm like, well, I haven't seen that yet. So I'll follow up, and we'll go from there, and I'll get them to we'll get an agreement set up. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. It was Bob and Jim, I believe. Any further? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Carried. Okay, the next item is consider updated anti-discrimination sexual harassment policy. You have received the policy. I've worked closely with Jim Romer's office. It's in final form. By law, what had happened the last time we were trying to do this, the state changed right after we were going to pass one, and then they changed it. So now we're in final form. Is there any discussion about this policy? Any questions? Okay, so I need a motion to pass the anti-discrimination and harassment policy.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Carried. Okay, so this will be directly distributed to all staff members. On another note, we still have a few people that need to complete the anti-harassment training online through NYMER, and then we'll go from there. Okay, great. The shared services highway agreement with the town of Lisbon. We received that back in the middle of July. The town of Lisbon did a blanket resolution authorizing the supervisor to enter into agreements with shared highway services for multiple municipalities. Okay, so right now we have a shared services agreement with the county, but we didn't get a reciprocal one back, even though I've requested it. We have one with the town of Russell for maintenance of a particular highway. But what I'm asking the board is, do we want to do a blanket one for every municipality that that highway works with? Or do we want to wait until our organizational meeting in January and then do it? Because we don't have these with every municipality that we work with. I don't know if the highway committee wants to go back and talk to Terry about that. What do you think?
Do we have an accurate list of all the municipalities we work with? Like this list from Lisbon seems interesting.
I think this happens all the time, Tim. It's just a matter of getting it in writing. So what we should technically do is do a reciprocal one for at least the town of Lisbon, because they've done it, you know, on their end.
I mean, we do shared services with Oswegatchie. We will run trucks for them. They'll run trucks for us. We can talk to Terry about it.
I think what they may be referring to, even though you know we don't trade work back and forth per se, but for instance, if you go out of Morley towards Bucks Bridge, you turn onto the Jones Road. There's about maybe 0.2 of a mile of the Jones Road that's in the town of Canton. So what happens is when the town of Lisbon plows that road, they come all the way across it. And so they plow probably that 0.2 of a mile in the town of Canton for us. They turn around on the county road and they plow back, you know, rather than lifting their plows at the lines. So they may be looking for, you know, from a liability standpoint of an agreement that we are sharing this work. It happens again over on the Morley Potsdam Road. We go in off from 310, maybe a 1/4 of a mile. Potsdam plows to 310, turns around and goes back through. I don't know that we have an agreement with Potsdam to do this. It's just something that's always been done. You know, they plow to the end of the road. It happens on the Pollock Road. We do the same thing in municipalities also. I think we plow into DeKalb. So it probably would make sense that we have a written agreement with these municipalities. So if something does happen, we show that we have an agreement where they have agreed to plow this section of road. We've agreed to plow this section of road. And that may be, I might be wrong, but that may be where that's coming from with the town of Lisbon, because historically we have not shared work with the town of Lisbon.
I think it makes sense to have these agreements in place with everybody. I was just curious about the town of Lisbon list. Like they have town of Parrishville listed. I'm just trying to figure out how those two are.
Because they probably share some services with them.
Maintenance or something. Yeah, so.
I mean, we have an agreement with the town of Russell for the North Woods Road, and it's actually a financial relationship, but I think Jim's correct. I think for insurance purposes, we should have these agreements. And similarly, when we plow in the village of Rensselaer Falls, I think we also need to have one with Rensselaer Falls. Anytime we go out of our jurisdiction into someone else's jurisdiction, we should have their okay to do that in writing.
Yeah, we absolutely should. If we can do it in a relatively simple blanket one rather than piecemealing it with each individual one, that's great. Just,
and it looks like that's
my only question was what's our list look like? Lisbon's, I thought, was just very interesting. What's our list look like?
So will the highway committee get that list of municipalities that we work with, and then we can, I think Lisbon's resolution's pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we'll
Eric works with a number of towns. What's your experience with this, Eric?
I don't think a lot of the other municipalities have those kind of shared services agreements.
So are you saying that they're not necessary? What's your opinion on it?
Jim, it never hurts, right? To lay that stuff out never hurts. You know, it's I mean, they've been done on a handshake for 100 years, but in the modern day and age, having an agreement setting forth the rights and responsibilities, it never hurts.
Well, and most attorneys always tell me everybody gets invited to the table that's involved. So if we're going to be invited to the table, it probably doesn't hurt to have something in writing.
Everybody gets an invitation to the dance. That's the way it works.
It's good practice.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll wait till Bob and Jim get that from Terry, and then we'll start plugging away on that. Great, thank you. Charter communications agreement. This is for informational purposes because I don't want to forget it. We need to discuss and review the current agreement that we have because renewal is in September of 2021. But I think there's a lot to consider, and that's why I just put it on here. I'll send that out directly to Eric, and we can start plugging away at that. I think there's a lot to consider and discuss on that. So that was
the agreement that expires next year, that was also a 15-year agreement matching kind of the
that's what they want.
But what was the term of the current agreement that expires?
I think we're at 10. I'll have to circle back on that, but I think they're looking at a 15.
Yeah, if we have a record of a copy of the current agreement on file, distribute that.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is the town board sets the rate for the tax, right? Right now we get 5%. That's the franchise tax that we get. And it's the decision of the town board. You can't go over 5%, but you certainly can decrease it. So that's a tax on our constituents that's extra. So, I think we really need to look at that. Okay, the last item is you've got a copy of the budget calendar. I sent that back a little while ago. The first budget, and it's a fluid document, the first work session for the budget for the board was scheduled for August 27th. I guess there's a conflict now with some board members. So can we set another date for the first budget work session? Do you want to go the following week? What about September 2nd? And that'll be good. That'll give me and Gray a little bit more time, and we're getting good at it, aren't we, John? Yes. So
September 2nd would be good with me.
September 2nd? Bob and Jim?
Okay by me.
Okay, what time?
Fine and dandy.
What time? 7? Okay. Need your binders. All right, we'll do that. Great, thank you. All right, the last item is public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Okay, Toby? Hello.
Hello. I will preface my comment by saying, with all due respect to the board, which I have a great amount of, and the fact that we have spent considerable time talking about process, I would like to remind the board that the Complete Streets Task Force is not merely a frivolous exercise in writing resolutions that don't go anywhere. And we have an influence for safety, education, and promotion of improved road structures as part of our resolution that you approved. To receive this work tonight about the roads and what's going to be paved with zero consultation, zero notice of this other than Bob bringing it to the committee on Monday, it really flies in the face of trying to improve the road structures. And I know we have an elected town supervisor for the road, fine, but that person is not participating in these meetings, does not participate with respect to the Complete Streets Task Force. Therefore, it puts us in limbo. I would ask that we work on this piece of process and improve the fact that, once again, the list flies by with no comment for improvement. It's doing business as we've always done it. And I know we have a pandemic, and I know we have a state that can't provide the funding, et cetera, but that doesn't prevent us from planning. And as far as I'm concerned, planning is a four-letter word with respect to the improvement of the roads in this town. So I would ask some thoughtful consideration of a better approach for getting the list together well in advance. There's no reason that this list that Bob presented tonight couldn't have been presented in April. None. With the caveat, we don't know if we're going to have money. That hasn't been done. The same problem exists with the village, and I've expressed the same concern. We can't do the work of this committee if we don't know what's going on. So I would respectfully ask that you improve that process, and you do so by following the resolution that you passed a couple of years ago.
Are you through, Toby?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. I think, as I mentioned at the meeting on Monday, there's over 100 miles of roads in the town of Canton, and there's never enough money to do an individual road by itself. As a complete, please give me a minute. All right. I guess I'm taken aback a little bit by your comments, just because I communicate things as I know them and as we discuss them. We're working on a project at the behest of the Complete Streets Task Force on the Minor Street Road, in which the task force is heavily engaged in as much as they want to be. The process is the process, because if you look at I could read the amount of footage that we're doing by each road. And so I don't know what information you're going to learn, or we're going to learn by doing 1,500 feet of a road in the middle of the road. I don't know how we do that as a pedestrian improvement. I think the process is different in the village, where the village is actually doing it in an area that's highly congested with pedestrians, and there's priorities. So when we're strangleholded by a 2% tax cap, we have funding issues, we're putting Band-Aids on our roads. And when you're putting Band-Aids on something, it's very difficult to think about it as a complete rehab in how to improve it for pedestrian safety. Where we could do that, and the stretches of road where it was prudent to do that, we are doing that. Eddie Pirates was widened with the idea that eventually it's going to fit into the larger picture. Complete Streets Task Force was part of that. I understand your frustration, but you imply that there's a silver bullet to the process when dealing with town roads. We're lucky to do in our best year, we do 5 miles. Right now, we're doing about 2 to 3 miles, and it's piecemeal. So we're open to suggestions. How can our process be improved that when we're doing 1,000 feet of a certain road, we don't even have roads at 20 feet wide in the town. So making the Kelly Road 28 feet wide, I mean, it's a non-starter. So I don't mean to be pushed back, but I'm committed to this, and I'm doing everything I can to help be the liaison in this process. But I think what you're asking for is nearly impossible.
Well, if you don't start with planning,
I don't say that happens.
if you don't,
Oh, wait a minute. One at a time. Who was Jim or Toby?
Well, and going along with, I mean, the process was different this year. Last year, as you said, Toby, all of the projects we did last year, we looked at the start of the season. The problem this year was we didn't even know if there was going to be a season. We didn't know if we were going to put any blacktop down. And then when we see that, okay, we can get some reimbursement in, we did do Judson. You look at the one project where Terry is starting this time around, and these are all, this is 6 projects that are only adding up to $200,000. The Kelly Road project, there's no way that you're ever going to do anything with regard to pedestrian or bike traffic on the Kelly Road section in the town of Canton. The town of Lisbon comes in from 68 to the town line in Canton. Town line in Canton goes less than a mile to the town of Oswegatchie. It's a small section of road in between 2 other townships. And so we would be wasting our time discussing it. And like I said, as Bob says, we're happy when you people come forward so that we can move on a project like Minor Street, because without the trail and without complete streets, I doubt we'd be discussing the Minor Street project.
Again, my point was not finding fault with Mr. Washoe. My point is planning, looking at possible educational improvements and or structural improvements. They don't have to cost a lot of money necessarily, but if we don't look at them in advance with some ability to talk to the superintendent, we aren't doing anything that is constructive. And frankly, I don't buy the notion that this list had to come up 4 or 5 days ago and wasn't thought about earlier. I mean, that's just silly. You had some choice in the matter early on. So I don't want to repeat this process next year. I want a firm commitment that planning can go on in an April, May timeframe when you might influence the outcome. That's what I'm asking for. Not a rehearsal of the fact we don't have money. Of course I realize you don't have money. You haven't finished any roads with this 1.5 miles at a time routine. Maybe that needs to be looked at. So I'm just making suggestions here that process needs to be improved. It is not at the authority of one person to make the decision. Thank you for your time.
Well, I have one couple more comments. The damage to the Kelly Road just happened. We didn't. I mean, really, Toby?
Of course, if an emergency happens and something breaks, of course you have to fix it. I'm not quibbling about any one project. That is not my point.
Well, I have a suggestion then, and I'm happy to bring this back to the committee as well. Perhaps the Complete Streets Task Force could look at the 100 miles of town roads and identify other areas that we should consider when we're making these Band-Aid improvements to them, and how that could go forward. And
good thought. I would be happy to reflect on that and ask for participation. Good thought.
Just piling on that, I don't know if it's, I mean, Dank is about to do the entire survey of our town roads. Is there any ability to kind of get some evaluation of needs out of that may be
No,
helpful,
we-
but I don't know if that's.
There was, I don't know how long ago now, Jim, 10 years ago, maybe, we had the county, or we had the town had an independent person come in and evaluate the roads, do traffic counts. Yeah, Toby, I totally understand your frustration. I don't think there's anybody more frustrated than Jim and I. We just don't express it in the same way. We're working with peanuts trying to tackle huge problems. And if you think if I need to do a better job communicating what I know, tell me, but I tell you everything that I know when I know it.
Again, I have no problem with that. That is not my point. Which perhaps opens the second question, which is, if the town major function is roads, perhaps a larger project needs to be looked at how it's funded, how more funds can be acquired, and why we are deteriorating so rapidly. I have some ideas on that front, but this is not the forum for that. The whole road situation is much bigger than this one meeting, granted that.
If I may, right now I'm starting the 2021 budget process. And part of that I get from the departments, and I ask Highway, okay, what's your vision for 2021 on the roads? And it's a fluid thing, right? Right now you could say these roads need to be worked on, but that could change. And certainly this COVID has hit all of us, and it's unfortunate. In the tax cap now, it's not even 2%. I think we're down to 1.5. So it's a dire problem for our town. It is. So, okay, is there any other public comment? All right, with that said, I need a motion to go into executive session for purposes of F. I need a motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Carried. Okay, thank you everybody else, and have a good evening. And it's 7:59, Lisa. So I'm not sure how we do this.
The recording.
We're still recording until we go into executive session.